Cut a toxic friend who ruined my reputation and friendships. In the bustling heart of downtown, amidst the towering glass structures and the relentless buzz of corporate life, I found myself on a roller coaster of professional highs and lows that I could never have anticipated. It all began with my friendship with Johnny, a colleague at a prominent marketing firm where I had been working for several years. Our bond was one forged in the fires of shared ambition, creativity, and mutual respect, and it seemed destined to thrive beyond the confines of the office. However, as with many relationships, the dynamics shifted unexpectedly, leading to consequences that would profoundly impact both my personal and professional life. Johnny was not just a co-worker. He was a confidant and a mentor. We met by chance, brought together by the fast-paced world of marketing where deadlines loomed large and creativity was the currency of success. From our very first project, there was an undeniable chemistry between us. We spent our lunches engaged in lively brainstorming sessions, exchanging ideas, and pushing each other to reach new heights. Our collaborations blurred the lines between professionalism and personal friendship, fostering a bond that felt indestructible. We celebrated every victory together, and his charismatic presence made him a beacon of positivity in my life. As the months turned into years, Johnny received a well-deserved promotion that thrust him into a more strategic role within the company. Initially, I was overjoyed for him, proud of his accomplishments, and excited about the new opportunities that lay ahead. However, it wasn't long before I began to notice a change in our interactions. With his new responsibilities came a dwindling availability. The shared moments of laughter and camaraderie became sparse, replaced by an awkward silence that hung heavily between us. It was as if the very fabric of our friendship was unraveling, and I was left feeling lost and uncertain. The signs were subtle at first, almost imperceptible. The conversations that had once flowed freely turned into sporadic exchanges filled with tension. Our lighthearted banter faded, giving way to competitive undercurrents that I had never sensed before. Johnny, who had once been my greatest ally, seemed to morph into a rival. His once constructive criticisms began to feel like veiled insults, and I found myself second-guessing my contributions at work. This emotional chasm deepened with each passing day, and I could sense the strain of our friendship hanging in the air like a dark cloud. The tipping point came during a high-stakes project that required collaboration from our entire team. In a pivotal meeting, I felt completely undermined by Johnny, who had previously championed my ideas. His dismissive remarks left me reeling, and it became abundantly clear that our friendship could no longer coexist with the competitive nature of our office environment. This realization was not only painful, but it forced me to confront a harsh truth. For the sake of my mental well-being and career integrity, I needed to distance myself from him. Making the decision to cut ties with Johnny was not impulsive. It was fraught with emotional risk and professional implications. The friendship that had once provided me with solace had turned into a source of anxiety, clouding my judgment and dampening my spirit. I began to limit our interactions, opting for strictly professional exchanges. I kept my contributions and meetings succinct, avoiding personal commentary that might invite the warmth we once shared. These subtle changes were my armor, a way to shield myself from the discomfort that came with our evolving relationship. However, Johnny was perceptive. He quickly noticed the shifts in our dynamic, and his initial confusion morphed into irritation when it became clear that I was intentionally distancing myself. It was at this juncture that the backlash began. I first noticed it when he began withholding critical information, details about client feedback and team meetings that he would have once shared without hesitation. This tactic not only isolated me, but began to erode my standing within our team. It was a deliberate maneuver to keep me at a disadvantage, and it was working. As my professional isolation intensified, Johnny's tactics grew more aggressive. In team meetings, he started to publicly question my contributions, often dismissing my proposals with condescending smirks. These displays chipped away at my confidence, and I began to feel the weight of my colleagues' skepticism. Whispers filled the air where once there had been nods of approval. I was a ghost in my own workplace, and the realization was crushing. The smearing of my name was not confined to closed-door meetings. Johnny leveraged his charisma and network to cast further aspersions on my professional reputation. He shared embellished anecdotes that painted me as unreliable and uncooperative, using humor to make them stick. These stories spread like wildfire through the office, fueled by gossip and the credibility he still commanded. The immediate consequences were stark. Colleagues who had once sought my company at lunch began to avoid me, and invitations to social gatherings dwindled. The emotional toll was immense. Each day at the office became a test of endurance, filled with anger, betrayal, and a profound sense of loss. I grappled with feelings of isolation, questioning my worth and abilities. The office, which had once been a place of ambition and fulfillment, transformed into a battleground where I felt constantly on the defensive, wary of the next rumor or undermining comment. In my quest to understand the extent of the damage, I reached out to a few trusted colleagues. Their hesitancy to speak openly, coupled with sympathetic glances, confirmed my worst fears. Johnny's narrative had taken hold, and my professional image was in tatters. But amidst the turmoil, I had a moment of clarity. I realized that surrendering to despair would only validate Johnny's portrayal of me as weak and incapable. I refused to let his actions define my career. Determined to reclaim my narrative, I strategized a comeback. I began documenting our interactions, gathering concrete evidence of Johnny's manipulative tactics. I renewed my efforts to deliver impeccable work, ensuring that my contributions could withstand the most rigorous scrutiny. Additionally, I sought the counsel of our HR department, presenting my case in a way that left no room for doubt. This move, while risky, was essential to expose the undercurrents of manipulation that had poisoned my professional life. The HR intervention marked a turning point, catalyzing investigations that gradually began to shift the narrative within our office. Despite the challenges, my journey toward reclaiming my reputation was far from over. The betrayal I felt was not easily erased, and the road to rebuilding trust within my professional circle was slow and precarious. Yet, through this adversity, I discovered an inner resilience and a determination to rise above pettiness. As the annual company retreat approached, I felt a mixture of dread and anticipation. This event, traditionally a time for celebration, had become an arena for office politics, and I braced myself for the reality of Johnny's campaign against me. The picturesque lodge outside the city, a stark contrast to my internal turmoil, set the stage for the unfolding drama. As colleagues gathered, the air buzzed with anticipation, but the tension surrounding my presence was palpable. The pinnacle of conflict arrived during the gala dinner, where whispers ceased as I approached groups of colleagues. I overheard a conversation among newer employees discussing Johnny's latest disparaging remarks about my contributions. It was then that I felt the sting of betrayal more acutely than ever. The rumors were not just isolated incidents. They had become a narrative that others were willing to believe. It was clear that passive endurance was no longer an option. I needed to confront the situation head-on. Summoning my resolve, I approached Johnny, who was holding court among a group of laughing colleagues. As I asked to speak with him privately, the laughter died down, and tension thickened the air. We found ourselves on a quiet balcony, where the serenity of our surroundings starkly contrasted the storm brewing between us. I took a deep breath and spoke firmly. "I know what you've been saying about me. This ends tonight." His initial surprise quickly transformed into a mask of indifference as he dismissed my concerns. "I'm not sure what you've heard, but I think you're taking office chatter too seriously," he replied coolly. My frustration surged as I countered, "This isn't just chatter. It's targeted and destructive. You've changed, and not for the better." In that moment, the truth became clear. Johnny's perspective was not rooted in friendship, but rather in a cutthroat approach to career advancement. His nonchalant admission that this is how the game is played revealed a chilling side of office politics that I had not fully grasped. It was a painful realization that the person I once trusted had transformed into someone willing to manipulate relationships for personal gain. The conversation ended without resolution, but it marked a significant shift within me. From that point forward, I knew my path would not align with Johnny's. I would forge my own way forward, rooted in the values of integrity, respect, and trust. Walking away from that confrontation with a heavy heart, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. The fight to clear my name was just beginning, but I was determined to do it on my terms, with transparency and dignity. In the days following the retreat, I took proactive steps to navigate the turbulent waters of office politics. I initiated contact with HR, calling for a departmental meeting where I presented a comprehensive notebook documenting instances of Johnny's manipulative behavior. Backed by emails and eyewitness accounts from colleagues who had witnessed his actions, I sought to not only clear my name, but to shed light on a toxic culture that needed addressing. To my relief, the HR department responded swiftly and initiated a formal investigation. I was aware that this would not only affect my relationship with Johnny, but would also spark a broader conversation about workplace integrity and the necessity of accountability. As the investigation unfolded, I felt a growing sense of empowerment. The support I received from other colleagues, who courageously came forward to corroborate my experiences, was uplifting and bolstered my resolve. Months later, as the investigation concluded, the results were both a relief and a turning point. The company took decisive action against Johnny, leading to a shift in the dynamics within the team. While the damage had been done, the importance of transparency and accountability became a focal point for our workplace culture. I was no longer a mere participant. I was a catalyst for change, advocating for an environment where collaboration thrived over competition, where trust replaced suspicion. The recovery process was not instantaneous, but I made it a point to engage with my colleagues, seeking to rebuild relationships that had been strained. I organized informal gatherings to foster camaraderie and began initiatives aimed at encouraging transparency in our work processes. Each small victory reinforced the idea that integrity and cooperation are the bedrock of a successful workplace. I learned that resilience was not just about enduring. It was about rising with purpose, fueled by a vision of a more supportive and collaborative work culture. Reflecting on the entire experience, I recognized that the journey from betrayal to empowerment was fraught with challenges, but each step led me closer to a more authentic self. I discovered invaluable lessons about trust, integrity, and the power of community in overcoming adversity. I emerged not only as a more resilient individual, but as an advocate for a culture where competition would not overshadow collaboration. Today, as I share my story, I hope to inspire others facing similar challenges. It's essential to recognize that toxic dynamics can exist even in the closest of friendships, and it's crucial to prioritize mental well-being above all. Relationships evolve, and sometimes the most empowering decision is to create distance when those we trust become adversaries. Every experience, no matter how painful, offers an opportunity for growth. I encourage you to confront toxic behaviors, to document your experiences, and to seek the support of those who truly value collaboration over competition. In navigating the complexities of workplace dynamics, remember that integrity, transparency, and the courage to stand for what is right will guide you toward a more fulfilling professional life. In closing, my story is a reminder that while challenges may test our resolve, it is our response to those challenges that defines our path. Embrace the journey of self-discovery, prioritize healthy relationships, and foster a work culture where kindness and support prevail. Together, we can create environments where everyone thrives, learning from the lessons of the past to build a brighter future. The chains of manipulation. Mary had always believed in the promise of love, a belief that stood steadfast even amidst the tumultuous challenges of life. At 26, she found herself in a relationship with Alex, a kind-hearted soul who was gentle and introverted. They had been together for over 3 years, sharing laughter, tears, and countless memories. Their bond was deepened by understanding and mutual respect, a sanctuary in the chaotic world around them. Yet, despite their unwavering support for each other, an insidious force loomed over their relationship. Alex's mother, Mrs. Smith. On the surface, Mrs. Smith appeared to be a typical mother, nurturing and caring. However, behind closed doors, her behavior told a different story. For years, she had exhibited emotionally abusive tendencies toward Alex, belittling him and manipulating him to fulfill her needs. As Mary observed the dynamics unfold, she recognized the toll that this emotional abuse was taking on Alex. The constant barrage of negativity chipped away at his self-esteem, leaving him feeling unworthy and powerless. Mrs. Smith's troubled background served as a backdrop to her behavior. 3 years ago, She had gone through a divorce that left her emotionally shattered. The dissolution of her marriage triggered a downward spiral in her mental state, transforming her from a loving mother into a bitter and resentful figure. Since then, her daily routine had been marked by a sense of aimlessness, often isolating herself and neglecting household responsibilities. This neglect only added to the tension brewing within the family, leaving Alex to shoulder burdens he shouldn't have had to bear. In their interactions, Mrs. Smith's behavior was toxic. She frequently belittled Alex, using cutting remarks that pierced through his defenses. Every accomplishment was met with criticism, every mistake magnified. Yelling became commonplace in their household, her frustrations unleashed upon him without restraint. The emotional wounds inflicted by his mother left Alex feeling small, trapped in a cycle of abuse from which he saw no escape. As Mary witnessed Alex's struggle, her heart ached for him. He was a gentle and kind-hearted soul, yet beneath his calm exterior lay a sea of emotional turmoil wrought by years of enduring his mother's toxic treatment. The emotional scars manifested in anxiety, racing thoughts, and physical symptoms like chest tightness and shortness of breath. The atmosphere in their home was thick with tension, and Alex felt he was walking on eggshells, terrified of triggering his mother's anger. Despite the pain Mrs. Smith caused, Alex yearned for her love and approval, desperately seeking validation from a source that seemed incapable of providing it. The fear of confronting her kept him paralyzed, preventing him from asserting his autonomy and seeking a better life. Mary, grappling with the heartbreaking reality of his situation, often wondered how to help him find refuge from his mother's toxicity. One particularly tense visit home became a breaking point. Mary could no longer remain silent, while Mrs. Smith unleashed her relentless barrage of criticism upon Alex. Fueled by anger and frustration, Mary spoke up, confronting Mrs. Smith about her treatment of Alex. Instead of diffusing the tension, her outburst only escalated the situation. Mrs. Smith turned her fury on Alex, accusing him of choosing Mary over her and demanding he make a choice between them. The heartbreaking ultimatum left Mary feeling torn, knowing Alex was caught between loyalty to his mother and love for her. In the aftermath of the confrontation, Mary was overwhelmed with conflicting emotions. Anger, hurt, and disappointment battled within her. But one undeniable truth remained. She loved Alex. A week passed, and despite her initial resolve to distance herself, she found herself unable to abandon him in his time of need. The love she felt for Alex compelled her to forgive him. Despite the pain caused by his mother's manipulation, Mary made it clear to Alex that while she was willing to give him another chance, she would not subject herself to further abuse from Mrs. Smith. From that point on, they chose to meet outside of his mother's house, avoiding the toxic environment that had caused them so much pain. However, just when they thought they were making progress, another devastating blow struck. Alex made the shocking decision to hand over the money they had been saving for their future to his mother. The betrayal cut deep, leaving Mary feeling helpless and despairing at the extent of Mrs. Smith's control over Alex. With each passing day, the reality of their situation grew heavier. Despite her love for Alex, Mary could not ignore the manipulation that permeated their lives. The trust they had built together seemed to crumble under the weight of his mother's influence. After much soul-searching, Mary realized that she could not continue sacrificing her own well-being for a relationship built on such a fragile foundation. Heartbroken but resolute, she broke up with Alex. A month later, she received a distressed call from him. Alex confessed that he felt utterly worthless, consumed by despair after his mother betrayed him again, taking the money he had given her and running away with another man. Her heart broke for him. She understood the depths of his pain. Driven by love and compassion, Mary made the decision to return to his side. Together, they embarked on a journey of healing, attending regular therapy sessions to address his mental health struggles. Through the challenges, Mary remained steadfast in her commitment to Alex. She took it upon herself to create a sense of hope for their future, painting a vivid picture of a life together filled with love and happiness. Slowly but surely, Alex's spirit began to stabilize, the light of hope flickering back into his eyes. Their bond grew stronger, forged in adversity and strengthened by unwavering love. After months of healing, they made a monumental decision to get married. The excitement of planning their future together filled them with renewed purpose. As they stood hand in hand, ready to face the challenges ahead, they knew they could conquer anything together. 10 months into their marriage, Mary found herself pregnant. The impending arrival of their son filled them with joy and anticipation. But just as they began to revel in their happiness, the specter of Mrs. Smith reappeared, casting uncertainty over their lives once again. With tearful pleas, she sought to worm her way back into their lives, leaving Mary feeling torn and anxious about the potential impact on their child. In a quiet moment, Mary gathered her courage to speak with Alex about her fears. She urged him to reconsider allowing his estranged mother back into their lives, expressing her concerns about exposing their child to the same toxicity that had plagued Alex's childhood. Alex, though understanding, felt a deep obligation to give his mother another chance. Frustrated and overwhelmed, Mary stormed out of their home, seeking solace in the company of her best friend. Days turned into weeks, and her mood swung wildly between anger and despair as she struggled to find stability. The emotional turmoil took a toll on her, leaving her feeling isolated in her fears. Then one fateful day, a sharp pain tore through her abdomen, sending her doubling over in agony. Her best friend rushed her to the hospital, where the urgency of the situation unfolded. As the doctors and nurses bustled around her, the gravity of her predicament struck her. Her baby was fighting for life within her womb. Time seemed to stand still as she clung to hope, praying fervently for the safety of her unborn child. With a cry that pierced the air, her son was born, fragile and vulnerable but alive. Overwhelmed with love, Mary knew she would do whatever it took to protect this precious gift. As Alex rushed to her side, relief washed over them both. In his arms, Mary found strength amidst the chaos, knowing they could weather any storm together. Their bond was solidified in the shared joy of their son's arrival, a beacon of hope that promised a brighter future. After a long and difficult conversation, they made the tough decision to place Mrs. Smith in a nursing home. It was a necessary choice for her well-being and their peace of mind. However, shortly after her admission, they received news that she had fled the facility, leaving Mary feeling anxious and uncertain about what to do next. As they navigated this new chapter in their lives, Mary couldn't shake the feeling of impending doom. The thought of Mrs. Smith returning and causing havoc once more weighed heavily on her mind. Torn between her duty to Alex's mother and the need to prioritize the safety of her family, Mary felt exhausted. The challenges of caring for Mrs. Smith while trying to protect her own family's happiness were daunting. Each day was a delicate balancing act, and the uncertainty loomed like a dark cloud. Despite the progress they had made, the specter of manipulation and control remained a constant reminder of the struggles they faced. In the midst of this turmoil, Mary found herself grappling with her emotions. The love she felt for Alex and their child was unwavering, yet the fear of his mother's influence loomed large. Time passed, and as she navigated her fears, she realized that they needed to set firm boundaries to protect their family. Mary and Alex decided to prioritize their own mental health and the well-being of their child above all else. They sought therapy together, learning strategies to cope with the emotional fallout from Mrs. Smith's manipulation. As they worked through their challenges, they found solace in each other's support, forging a stronger bond with each passing day. Gradually, they learned to navigate the complexities of their relationship with Mrs. Smith. Boundaries were established, and they made it clear that her behavior would no longer dictate their lives. Mary became a fierce advocate for her family, determined to shield them from the toxicity that had once threatened to tear them apart. As time went on, Alex began to reclaim his sense of self. With Mary's unwavering support, he learned to prioritize his mental health and well-being. The journey was not easy, but each step forward brought renewed hope and strength. Finally, after months of healing and hard work, they reached a point of stability. With their child growing and thriving, Mary felt a sense of peace she hadn't known in years. The shadows of the past began to fade, replaced by a bright future filled with love and joy. As they stood together, hand in hand, watching their child take his first steps, Mary realized that the journey had transformed them. The challenges they had faced had forged an unbreakable bond, and together they had created a safe haven, free from the chains of manipulation that had once threatened to bind them. The road ahead was still uncertain, but Mary felt ready to face whatever came their way. With Alex by her side and their son in her arms, she knew that love would always be their guiding light, leading them toward a brighter tomorrow.